Bob Socci does a great job as Patriots radio play-by-play voice, and I know he's probably, I don't know if he has a voice left, does a good job with CBS Radio, flagship station for the Patriots radio network. Kind enough to talk about Super Bowl 51. Do you still have your voice left?
It's still hanging in there, Rich. Not as full of timber as it might have been on Sunday night, but it's hanging in okay.
You know, I can say this from one play-by-play guy to another. We played the call, we listened to the call, and I said on the air, I said, "There you go, Zolak, got to step on the call."
Well, you know what?
That's okay though.
That's the way it's been for 4 years.
Yeah, I hear you. That's the gentleman. Right, exactly. That's the gentleman's answer. Hey, listen, good to catch up with you. First and foremost, you know, when you watch, it's hard to when you're calling the game, and you know, obviously you're still objective, but you're calling it for the listening audience. But are you saying in the back of your mind when New England starts to kind of scratch and claw, they get a field goal, it's 25-9, 25-12. All right, they were down by 25 points, they were down by 19. How do you kind of compartmentalize everything as you're doing the game itself, and then you're saying, wow, I might be seeing history here, and I can't believe it?
You know, to be honest with you, that last part of it, I never thought about once we got into a rhythm in the broadcast booth, which coincided, of course, with the Patriots offense getting into a rhythm and the game starting to turn. You know, it was so surprising the first half on so many different levels to see the Patriots struggle as they did, especially offensively. And the broadcast was a lot like the game itself, frankly, naturally, because we are the Patriots announcers, and Scott, as evidenced by that final call, rides the roller coaster of emotions with the team as well. So once the game began to turn and the Patriots got into a flow offensively and they got some stops, or at least the Falcons contributed, of course, at that point you're really concentrating so much on doing your job as a play-by-play announcer and try to stick to the description. Where's the ball? All the essentials, as you know, down, distance, time.
Sure, absolutely.
Try to do the math in your head. What do they need to come back? What's the probability of getting two here? What point do you think about onside kicks? How many timeouts? All those things, et cetera. Really, until that final drive in overtime, was there a sense, okay, this is the first overtime in Super Bowl history. This is an opportunity to win a fifth. And then, of course, when they're within 2 yards of the end zone, obviously it enters your mind then, but you're still trying to concentrate on being as descriptive as you can.
I'm wondering, as the game's going on and Brady looks a little off, New England, looks sluggish early on. You see they're not playing New England like football early on with a couple of those turnovers, the pick six, boom, down 21-0. Then you go, Patriots go in the locker room with that deficit. It's amazing because you always talk about the halftime adjustments that Belichik makes, and he's brilliant in that fashion. Were you guys surprised that Atlanta, it seemed as though Atlanta started to tighten up a little bit with the play calling, got a little conservative, when they had an opportunity? I think my biggest gripe is when you watch the game, and I watched it now 3 times, when you go back and you look at that one series where Ryan had to throw in the great catch to Jones, you're saying to yourself, all you need to do is pick up a couple yards, kick a field goal, you go up by 11, and that's it. And I'm just wondering, when you guys are watching that unfold, were you guys kind of talking about that through the broadcast where, okay, New England's got some life here?
Oh, absolutely. And I would backtrack to the previous series for the Falcons when the Patriots got the sack. I mean, the one thing about that particular situation, it's 3rd and 1, and Ryan takes a 7-step drop. Now, Freeman doesn't pick up Hightower. He comes in and hits the quarterback and forces the ball loose. But Zolak, being a former quarterback, does a great job of analyzing the game through quarterback size. And maybe we're spoiled by watching a guy like Brady, who up to that point had not played, of course, the way he finished out the game. But still, I think, Scott was right on it immediately. If you're Matt Ryan in that situation, you can't allow that to happen.
Nope.
If you're Kyle Shanahan and Dan Quinn, what are you doing, calling a 7-step, a pass play that involves that deep a drop? And in that situation, if you're going to throw it, throw something safe to the back. Yep. Freeman, the Patriots had a tough time stopping him, whether he was running it or catching it. The speed of the Falcons certainly was a big part of that success they had throughout the game on both sides of the ball. And I just thought the play call itself was questionable. It's 3rd and 1 in that spot. The last thing you can do is give the ball away and give the Patriots life, let alone field position, and the Pats got both. But you're right. Thereafter, of course, on the ensuing series, Falcons get a huge play by Freeman to start the drive. Then Ryan hits Jones And at that point, they're well within Matt Bryant's field goal range. His longest kick of the year was 59. Longest of his career was 62. And I thought at that point, Kyle Shanahan, Dan Quinn as the head coach, has got to make sure that everybody's on the same page. Look, we're in field goal range. Let's not move backwards here, and that's exactly what they did.
It's situational football, and you mentioned the Freeman play too, and he's in the game because Coleman gets hurt. And again, he's not been in the game for 3 series, so you have to know assignment football. Whether he whiffed on the block, I don't think you can be as critical in that regard when it comes to Matt Ryan. But you're right. I mean, from top to bottom, whether it's Ryan, whether it's Shanahan, whether it's Quinn, I don't know. I really don't know how a franchise regroups from a loss like that. It would really be interesting going forward because now they're losing a lot of their pieces from their coaching staff. But again, that's yet to be seen going forward with the Falcons. As far as the Patriots, look, to me, Tom Brady, arguably the greatest quarterback. Forget about the Super Bowl era. I mean, people always. I brought up Montana the other day, and I think the older fans will say Montana because they look at it as, okay, 4-0 in the Super Bowl, always played at the highest level in the Super Bowl, MVP, the numbers are staggering, this, that, the other thing. I mean, look, you get to 7 Super Bowls and you win 5 of them. How do you even have an argument?
Yeah, and I think also too, Rich, when you consider who he's won those Super Bowls alongside. The Patriots had a great defense, of course, in the dynastic years, the 3 out of 4 to start the 2000s. And Brady, of course, was a kid who burst on the scene. And his heroics notwithstanding, I think he was viewed a lot differently than he was latter part of his career as the offense began to evolve around him. And he blossomed into one of the all-time greats. But still different generations of players. Doing it with a collection of players that, frankly, pale in comparison individually. When you look at his receivers versus a Jerry Rice or John Taylor,
no Hall of Fame,
a running back like Roger Craig, a team that was able to stay together through that period for the most part. I know they had, some changes, in particular the coaches, of course, with Seifert taking over for Walsh most notably. But for the most part, the nucleus of those 49ers teams, they stayed together. And I think, Young won following Montana. In Brady's case, he's won it with different generations of players. He's won it with a lot of guys, like I say, who, when you consider them individually, although I think, in some cases, a few of those guys are very much underrated players, still they're not of the ilk of the Hall of Famers that surrounded Joe Montana during that period. And like you say, you get to 7 Super Bowls, and now people can say, well, the Patriots were fortunate to win a couple of those victories they got, but they're also, unfortunate. They could have easily won the 2 that they lost.
Yep.
So
it goes both ways.
Yeah, absolutely, without question. And the rules are different too. Certainly more conducive to offense today. Passes are protected, better receivers. Certainly, have a lot more leeway. Defensive backs face a lot more restrictions. But I think overall the evolution of the game has changed. The athletes defensively, now the scheming and whatnot. You could make an argument on both sides. You can point to any number of factors. But for me now, 5 outnumbers for the different generations of players with which Brady has won that 5. Now, to me, that's what defines him as the greatest in comparison to Montana. But it's a great argument, and there probably will be no end to it.
No, it's right. It's sports talk argument. It's bar talk argument. But ultimately, you're right. I mean, you look at Montana with the wall-to-wall Hall of Famers, and it's just amazing. Like every year with New England, whether it's the Welkers, whether it's the Edelmans, the Amendolas, now the Hogans, you plug and play. Lewis does nothing, then he burst on the scene. Then you got the kid James White, who had a marvelous, really a marvelous Super Bowl. Last one for you, Bob, and appreciate a couple months. How long do you think Brady and Belichik are going to keep grinding it out? Because you would think after that, there's only one, you can't go up anymore if you're Brady. Right?
Well, I think they both, but the thing is, he loves it. He's in phenomenal shape. He's gotten better, frankly, the last couple of years than he was the previous couple of seasons. He's become more mobile, and he's devoted himself to this remarkable training regimen that he has in nutrition and wants to play, he says, into his mid-40s. I think Belichick certainly hasn't lost the passion, and he reminded us of why I think this organization has been so good for so long the day after the Super Bowl, when in Houston, He fielded a question and said, "Well, in all honesty, as great as today is, we're 5 weeks behind everybody
Typical
else in
Belichik.
preparation."
Yeah.
So I think Brady's going to be around for at least a few more years, if not more, and I would anticipate that Belichick will be too. Bill's only 64. Yeah, he's in good shape. Again, the passion is still there by all accounts on his staff and from people who know him. He hasn't slowed down, that's for sure.
Real quick, I got about 15 seconds. I know I got to let you get out of here. You graduated University of Dayton, correct?
I did.
All right. I had a cup of coffee doing radio up there. I'm not going to date myself, but I'll let you know it was during Oliver Purnell's tenure.
That was a pretty good period. Unfortunately, I was there as Don DeVoe was leaving. Jim O'Brien came in, but the Flyers back then were I said Don DeVoe, Don Donaher. Gosh, I worked with Don DeVoe at Navy. Don Donaher.
Oh, sure, yeah. When you did you did a football over there for a couple of years.
I did. I did football and basketball I did football for 16 actually.
Wow.
Unfortunately, when I was at Dayton, the basketball team was pretty bad. I think the last 3 years I was there were the worst 3 years at that point in the program's history.
So. It was you'll relate to this. It was News Talk 1290 WHIO in a little town called Kettering.
That's right.
That's right. That's all I remember with Dayton.
Well, here's another one for you. Kettering, Ohio's Joe from Kettering Alter High School. Joe Tooney is now a Super Bowl champion as a New England Patriot.
There you go. See, it's always about that connection. All right. Listen, enjoy the offseason, Bob. Good to catch up with you. And listen, congrats on having an opportunity to call the game, and a historic one. It was a great call too. Great call at the very end of that game and everything. All right, you got it.
Thank you very much.
Right.
It was an awesome experience.
You got it. Take care of yourself. Bob Socci, good stuff.